Can you tell me what your strengths are? What are your 3 strongest points? What are you good at? Quite the questions, right? These are dreaded questions for everyone going to job interviews. It's not very clear how you should answer and what you should say. If you speak too highly of yourself, they might think you're bragging and you're out. But if you undersell yourself when talking about your virtues, they might think you don't have any virtues and you'll be out as well. So, how do we answer this question? Hello, how are you? I am John Charles. I work in human resources and I am here to give you a hand. Conducting interviews is quite an art, and it is very important that you understand how an interviewer thinks. This way, you will be able to better adapt your speech to what is expected, and you will have a higher chance of passing the selection procedures. When they are asking you about your strengths, they are basically looking for 2 things. First, to see if your self-perception matches what they are looking for, and second, to know if you have a spirit of self-criticism. Are you capable of reflecting on yourself? Do you know how to identify your strengths and weaknesses? If the answer is yes, you likely have enough emotional intelligence and self-criticism to be attractive to companies. So, you should keep these 2 points in mind when formulating your response. Now, let's see how you can answer this question. First, you can consult the job description of the position, basically the job description. And where can you find this job description? Well, it's very simple. On the job portal where you saw the 2001 offer. Here you can see several things, such as the experience they are looking for in this position and the educational background required to work there. But what interests us now is that in this job description, you have the skills they consider necessary for this position. Normally, these job descriptions say things like, we are looking for someone who can work well in a team, we are looking for someone with leadership skills, someone who can handle stress well. Well, these are the skills that are important to them for the position you have applied for. So when you go to answer the question about what your strengths are, remember to keep in mind which skills are important to them and build your response based on that. Don't be obvious. Just because you sought inspiration from the job description, the descripción del puesto, doesn't mean you should copy exactly what they are looking for in your response. You should craft your own speech in this answer, keeping it in mind, but don't plagiarize. If you do this, the recruiter will notice. They won't know exactly what is true and what is false. Your answers will start to seem artificial, and in case of doubt, recruiters always discard you. And because in the end, it is much better to choose another candidate who doesn't raise doubts than to go with a person whose answers are good and fit what you're looking for, but about whom you have certain doubts regarding their honesty. When you speak, give examples. In human resources, it is often said that interviews are based on critical incidents. This means that your recruiter will always look for practical examples that illustrate why you believe you have those skills. Try to find, as much as possible, how your skills have been useful in resolving the different situations or problems you have encountered. So for every strength you list in your response, you should provide an example that perfectly illustrates it. What are your weaknesses? They can ask you this in many ways. What are your areas for improvement? What areas do you think you can improve? In the end, they are always asking you about your weaknesses, and when you formulate the answer to this question, you should think in exactly the same way as you have done. To answer with your strengths, you can look at the job description or the descripción del puesto to see which skills are important and have helped you build your strengths. Well, when talking about weaknesses, do not mention skills that are very important to them. These are the strengths. When discussing weaknesses, you should talk about different ones, and the weaknesses you mention should not be incompatible with the strengths. Think about skills that are supplementary and do not have a particularly negative impact on the job they are seeking. For example, if you are applying for a receptionist job, do not mention that customer service is one of the things you need to improve on when discussing your weaknesses. It is true that there is always room for improvement. A receptionist can always improve their customer service no matter how professional they are. However, in the interview, do not talk about how you can improve your customer service because this will only work against you and decrease your chances of being hired. In this example, you could talk about your leadership. What do you think you can improve about your leadership? Because it is not particularly a very important skill for someone working as a receptionist. And so it is with absolutely every job position. If leadership is important, don't say that you can improve leadership, but you can say, for example, that you can improve the way you organize yourself. Think like a recruiter. Highlight in strengths what is important and in weaknesses what is not important. How do you try to improve? Never, I repeat never, when talking about a weakness in a job interview, should you stop there. You should always talk about how you try to improve the weaknesses you have and what you do to prevent them from being a weakness. Just as we did with the strengths where we mentioned a strength and provided an example, here you should do exactly the same. Mention a weakness and how you are trying to improve it. This way to improve your weakness should be a practical example just like the strengths. For example, if you have listed organizational skills as one of your weaknesses, you can talk about how you have implemented Google Calendar into your daily routine as a tool to organize yourself much better and not forget anything important. And the same goes for all the weaknesses you are going to discuss in the interview. I advise you to come up with 3 strengths, 3 areas for improvement with 3 examples of why they are strengths, and your 3 methods for improving your weaknesses. This way, you will ensure that you have a good set of responses when you find yourself in this situation during the job interview. And that's all. I hope these tips have been very useful for you to understand how recruiters think, so when you go to a job interview, you know better how to respond. If you want to know more about job searching or watch videos on how you can improve your resume or interviews, I advise you to subscribe to the channel and of course share it with anyone who might be interested. Thank you very much and see you in the next video. Goodbye.